Okay, so this is the first video in our series of things that you need to understand to be effective in a ward council, or things that every ward council member should know, really is what it comes down to. The first one is this principle that's in the scriptures. I call this the gospel, the economics of the gospel, basically, is what this is. And what I mean by this is understanding the way people think about the gospel. Okay, economics is a study of how money is exchanged, how things are done. There's a lot about philosophy. There's a lot about actual how money gets moved around and things, but it's understanding why people make the decisions they do, basically. And it's fascinating. Economics really is a fascinating topic to get into and study because there's so much to learn and understand. Since getting into studying economics, in fact, I've learned that almost every single war that is fought over economics. Basically, it's how can I get more stuff for myself? How can I get their stuff for myself? That's economic. That's where wars usually come from. And so this is understanding economics and economic thinking does help us understand how can we be better with sharing the gospel with others. So get this, okay? This is people always think in terms of what's in it for me. What is the value am I going to get from this? And this is an important concept for us to consider, okay? Because this is how people look at the gospel. And if that sounds strange, like why would somebody look at the gospel like that? That doesn't make sense. Let's actually jump to the book of Job and give you an idea. Job chapter 21, verses 14 and 15. In here it says, "Therefore they say unto God, Depart from us, for we desire not the knowledge of thy ways. What is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what profit should we have if we pray unto him?" This is that point that I'm talking about. So people who are in people around us, okay, we know that there's this whole idea of Zion and Babylon, God, Satan, the world, spiritualness. There's this duality that's going on, and that duality or contrary is what gives us the ability to act, to make a choice and have agency to choose what we want to do. That's that part of the Abraham 3:25. The purpose of this life is to test us to see if we will choose God or choose the world and not choose God, basically. We hear that all the time. So this is where the economics comes in, is understanding how people think. So when people look at this, okay, and we want to look at this from a standpoint of, say, a non-member, okay, if we have neighbors that are non-members, they look at our lives and they say, you make about the same amount I make, we have about the same type of life. Life's good. We have about the same kind of life, basically. You've got a little bit of problems. I got a little bit of problems. We have some good times, some bad times. It's just how it works out. But it seems that in your life, you have a harder life than I do because you are part of a religion. You have to give your Sundays to worship God. I don't. I get my Sundays to do what I want. I can enjoy a longer weekend, more time with my family, more time doing what I want because I'm not held down. I'm not forced down to have to attend church every Sunday. They look at this and say, you have to give up 10% of your income. Do you realize when people stop being members of the church, they get a 10% raise in their checks? Not because they got a raise at work or anything, but because they stop paying their tithing. And they go, oh my gosh, I have now 10% more money. I mean, if you make $100,000 a year, that's $10,000 more in your pocket. That's nice. That's a nice, oh, just by stopping going to church, I get this $10,000. This is amazing. This is nice. I can go on a whole nother vacation with $10,000. That's a nice vacation. And I have my Sundays I can do it on. So this is great. My life feels better because I'm not following the gospel. I feel like my life is improving because I'm not keeping the commandments of God. They look at things like service. Oh, if you're in the church, you have to give service to the people. I don't have to do nothing for nobody. I can sit at my home, not talk to anybody, and just take care of myself. And I'm happy, and I don't have to worry about it. So this is what I'm talking about when I talk about the economics of the gospel. This is how people think. They're thinking in terms of what is the value to my life. Now, in today's world, it is really, really important for us to understand that when we look at value, we tend to look at value from a monetary perspective. We tend to sit back in life and go, oh, this is the way it is. This is, I want my life to be a way to do more for me. I want to have a job so that I can have more money to go play. I want to have a bigger house. I want to have more stuff. It's wealth accumulation. It's that popularity. It's how can I get a job that pays me a whole ton and requires very little of me so I can enjoy my own life more and not do things for others and not work. So it's a mindset, okay? And this is how people think. So when we look at the gospel, they go, this is your life, this is my life. My life seems to be better than yours. So why should I join your church? That's what it comes down to. And then we see non-members who basically, we see people who used to be members, I should say, and they move towards going away from the church because it looks so much nicer. It looks better. There's that T-shirt out there with Darth Vader on it that says, "Come to the dark side. We have cookies." It just looks nicer over there. The grass is greener over here. I'm going to go that way. That's that draw to the world. And you might be saying, no, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. And you're right. It's not the way it's supposed to be. But it is the way it is. And that's what we have to understand and work with. There is that division, okay? And honestly, we should not condemn people for making the choice of leaving. In reality, we should not condemn people for that. Oftentimes, I think when we look at like Lehi's dream, we see this contrast. The people who go to the tree of life, the people who go to the great and spacious building. The people in the great and spacious building are laughing at those who went to the tree of life. They are enjoying their life. They are reveling, they are partying, they're having a great time. Lots of food, lots of drink, lots of opportunities to party and to just do whatever, and it's awesome. No rules. And the people of the tree of life have rules. They have guidelines. They have other standards. And so that's this contrast that we always have to battle in our life. And so as we do things in our life and as we try to help share the gospel with others, as leaders in the church, that's a big part of what we do, is help share that gospel with other people. Not so much the same way like a missionary would, but in a different sort of missionary type way as a leader, basically. We're not here to just administer a bunch of activities for the heck of it or even for the sake of it. We're here to convey the love of God to these people that we serve. Being a leader doesn't mean you're over people. Being a leader means you serve more people. This is the leadership. It's not about telling people what to do. It's about serving more people. It's about sharing the love of God with more people. You're assigned to share the love of God with this group of people and focus on their needs and connecting them with God. That's what a leader does in the church. So as a leader in your ward or your stake or whatever organization of the church you're in, this is an important point to understand. People are thinking about economic structures. They're thinking about, what is this? Is this going to be of value or benefit to my life or not? That's how they're viewing things, okay? Again, I'm not saying it's a right or wrong way to do things. It's just the way it happens. So just understand that. So here's what it comes down to when we look at this. So how do we teach the gospel? How do we help them see the benefits of the gospel? How do we help them understand that? This is the key, okay? This is how this works out. You see, in order for them, okay, so let me just preface this first before we get into answering that question. The real answer is, when you ask that question, how can I help my neighbors, or how can I help the members of my ward or my stake to feel the love of God? How can I help them know God exists? What can I do to teach this to them? And the answer is, you can't. It is not your job to make them love God. It's not your job to force them to understand Christ at all. At all. Full stop. That's not your job as a leader, is to compel them to God. It's not your job to say, these are all the great things of the gospel. The gospel has spiritual blessings, and there's this, health and life and spiritual blessings and things. That's untangible to people, and people want tangibleness. That's a part of the challenge we have, okay? If you think about it, when people say, I want to do it my way, not God's way, that is putting faith in themselves, not putting faith in God. Their faith is in themselves. When you go to the world believes in itself. When you go to God, you believe in God, which is someone outside of yourself. So you believe in yourself, you believe in somebody else. This is a big contrast in the struggle that we all face. So as leaders, we need to just understand this, okay? And just realize when people over here, they're not thinking in the same terms as people that are following God. People who have that testimony, people who get what Christ has done for them, they know it. They understand it. They have that personal conviction inside. They're not following because you're a leader. They're following because they have the conviction of Christ inside of them. That's what converts them. The Spirit is the one that has to help them along this path. We can't teach it to them. We just bring the Spirit along with us to influence them. That is an important distinction. As Sunday school teachers or gospel doctrine teachers or whatever, your job as a teacher is not to teach the people the gospel. Your job is to help them feel the Spirit through gospel discussion. And the Spirit will teach them what they need to know next to help them come closer to Christ. This is so important. If you've ever been a teacher, and you had somebody come up to you later and went, thank you so much. I learned about this topic so much from your class. It helped me so much. I appreciate that. And you're sitting there in mind going, I didn't teach that topic. It's the Spirit that taught that to them. You brought the Spirit into the room with your discussion of gospel topics, and the Spirit taught them what is the next thing they need to understand. That's the real teaching in the church, okay, is relying on the Spirit to do the heavy lifting for us, basically, which is wonderful if you think about it. That's a great way to do it. We like that. That's less onus on us as humans. So, as leaders, our job isn't to teach someone to love God. Our job is to love God ourselves and let our love of God shine through everything we do so that everybody around us says, I don't know what you have, but I want it too. So here's what it comes down to. The best way we can share the gospel with others, and this is, not Brigham Young, Spencer W. Kimball made the comment that we should always be doing missionary work. We should always be teaching the gospel, but we should only use words if we have to. Our example makes a big difference. So let's go down an analogy, okay? Right now, and you saw this if you watched the old movie, oh man, what was that show? Richard Drucker made it, the missionary one, God's Army. I believe that's what it was, God's Army, about missionary work, missionaries in California doing missionary work and stuff. There's a scene in there that helps really portray this example and this idea. There's a scene in there where two missionaries are teaching this middle-aged gentleman on his back porch. He's sitting on his back porch outside in the sun, and they're talking to him about families and how families can be together forever. And the one missionary who's teaching that principle of the discussion says, and the beauty of the gospel is you can be with your family for all eternity. Now, the missionary is coming from the standpoint of this is a great thing. It's kind of an intangible benefit, but it's a great thing to be with your family for forever. Now, from this man's concept, you have to understand he's sitting outside listening to the missionary discussions. Inside the house, right next to him, he has a baby that is screaming. And he has a wife that is yelling at him to get in there to help her with the stuff that's going on and to help deal with that screaming baby. So his family life right now is not the best. And to tell him in that moment that he can basically be with his wife and screaming child for the rest of his life, eternally, forever, That doesn't sound like a good idea. I mean, that's not quite, that's not the image you want to portray. But that's the tangibleness that he comes up with his mind. Of course, in the movie, he says, you mean I can be with my wife and my child forever? And the missionary's like, yes, you can. This is amazing. And he's like, I don't think I'm interested in talking to you guys anymore. I don't think this is for me. Why? It's because of the economics of it. Okay, this man is thinking in economics of what's the benefit for me. That I don't want to hear a yelling wife and a screaming child for eternity. That's what went through his mind. I want a loving wife that works with me. I want a child that works with me and that helps me and we can help it and it all works great and it's perfect and wonderful. That's the message that the missionaries are trying to teach him. But he didn't see that because, again, he's thinking about the economics of what's in it for me. What is the benefit for me? And from his perspective, there isn't a value in following the gospel. So this is the challenge we have to overcome if we want to share the gospel and spread it to our friends and neighbors and family members and everybody else. The whole point of this is, okay, because people who are, whether they're less active in the church, non-members in the church or anything like that, a worldly way to think about things is a more economic structure. How does this benefit my life? If they see your life as the same as them, but they get benefits because they don't pay tithing, they don't have to go to church on Sundays, they don't have to restrict smoking and drinking and stuff with Word of Wisdom, they don't have to give service all the time, they can do whatever they want. It feels like to them they have more freedom in their life. Why would I give all this up to follow a God? It doesn't make sense. I would have to burden my life to do this. And so that's what they're thinking. So that's the challenge that we have, okay, as we're trying to help people with the gospel. The single best thing we can do to help our friends and family and neighbors and ward members and stake members and people out, the single best thing we can do is truly seek Christ ourselves. The more we seek Christ, the more we understand Him, the more we have the good news of the gospel in our life, the more we know the blessings of the atonement and how wonderful that is. The more we have that in our life, the rest of it doesn't matter. If you have that feeling of the gospel, if you understand the value of the gospel, there is no sacrifice in the church. Giving 10%, that's nothing. Giving service to other people, easy peasy. That's nothing. Because we see the benefits of knowing Christ, having a personal relationship with Christ. So here's the thing. Here's what's going to happen. Okay, here's what, if you're a bishop or stake president and want to follow, kind of put this into practice and try this out, I would challenge you to try this. Here's what I believe is going to be important. As a ward council, okay, if all the members of the ward council really doubled down and focused on becoming closer to Christ themselves, and they encouraged their presidencies to come to Christ more. So all these people are doubling down on doing more to follow the commandments, to keep Christ in their life. And they're encouraging their families to do this as well. You have enough of a percentage of the population of a ward or a stake to start making change. This will make a big difference. Because here's what's going to happen. If my neighbor sees my life and he thinks we're comparatively about the same in life, he thinks he has these added benefits and things. But when he starts to notice that regardless of how my life is going, I am happy. I have a genuine happiness in my life. I have this feeling inside, this positiveness that just overflows with everything that I do. And it seems like my life is going better than theirs. For some reason, my life is better off than theirs. We have the same kind of cars. We have the same style house, or I'm not better because I have more money and I have bigger houses and bigger cars and stuff like that. That's a worldly philosophy. That's that gospel of prosperity. The more stuff you have, the better stuff you have, the more prosperous your life is, and the better your life is. That's not true. That is a worldly philosophy. If they can look at if my neighbor can look at my life and say, we're about the same, but for some reason you seem like you have a better life than me. And I don't know what it is, but something about you tells me your life is better off. Even though you have trials and challenges and stuff, your life seems happier. Your life seems better. I want to know why. What is that difference? That is what is going to help people to come to Christ. When they use this idea of economics and go, I don't know what you're doing in your life, but you just seem like you are having a lot better life than I am. And it doesn't involve monetary stuff. It just involves this sense of happiness and positiveness that you have in your life that I don't know where you got it from, but I want to know more because I want that happiness and positiveness in my life. That is the moment of decision we need to help our neighbors and friends and family get to. And it has to be a decision that they make, a moment they get to on their own. The best thing we can do to help them to get there is to have the Spirit with us. If the Spirit is with us, if we feel that closeness to Christ with us, that will convey itself. Their spirit will pick up on this. They, in just being around us, they'll be influenced to be happier and better. And they'll be like, man, every time I talk to that neighbor, I'm happy. Every time I talk to them, I feel better. I like it when I go to the parties at their house. I know they have no more stuff than I do. In fact, I probably have more stuff than they do. But there's a happiness around this family that I don't understand, but I want to, because I want that happiness in my life. That is what we need to be seeking for. That is the moment of that contrast of the world and the Spirit that will help people want to learn more. This makes such a big difference. I learned on my mission about this because I served my mission down in the South. And one thing that's really interesting about the South is where the railroad tracks are in the town. This is just one of those weird phenomenons that happen in the South, is the railroad tracks oftentimes run through the center of town. Based upon which side of the railroad tracks you live determines your economic value. What I mean by this is usually the wealthy people live on one side of the tracks and the poor people live on the other side of the tracks. It is just an inherent common phenomenon in the South. It's so crazy. Hopefully that's going away and not being as true as it used to, but it is such a fascinating structure of how culture existed in these societies, especially in smaller towns. Smaller towns, this is more true than larger towns. But there is a division that happens in any size city of wealthy go on one side, the poor go on the other. One thing I noticed on my mission is that when people are having hard times, when they are looking for some help outside of them, they are more receptive to listening to the gospel. They're more receptive of assistance. We had far more success on the poor side of the tracks in teaching the gospel than we did on the rich side of the tracks. And I believe it's this economics principle, this gospel of economics concept that was happening. People who are poor, who are looking for help, are more interested and willing to understand that help. Maybe not coming at it from the right perspective. They're looking for temporary help, whereas the gospel wants to give them more permanent help in their life. And the gospel doesn't guarantee they have no problems in their life, but ultimately their life will be better off because of the gospel. That's that intangible. Whereas the wealthy, they believed they were taken care of. They had the money they needed to do what they needed to do, and they didn't need any more money. Money secured them in life. It wasn't faith in God, it was money. And so they didn't need much. So they felt they didn't need a new message about God because they were prosperous. That's that gospel of prosperity philosophy that's terrible. If you want to learn more about that, go watch our Old Testament videos with Job, the book of Job, and we'll teach you a lot more about that. But here's the point, okay? People are using this economic structure to evaluate the gospel. The best thing that we can do is help them see through our example that there is tangible benefits to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that tangible evidence is in the happiness and love we have in our own life. It doesn't mean we have no sorrows or problems, but it means we are happier through those problems and challenges because we understand the eternal perspective of things. So the more we as a ward council or as a leadership council at the stake or any organization, the more we as the members of this council, the leaders, lead by example in actually living living that testimony, having God with us, that'll help us out. So here's the to-do part of this. This is what I'd recommend is what you need to do is think of what's going on in your life and what can you do, what changes can you make to help you come a little closer to Christ. This is important. So I actually have a list here, and I'll put them in the comment section that you can go down through here. I'm going to read some of these off as well, just an example, but the full list is in the comment section or the description of this video, so you can look at this. Take one thing from this list and work on it. Improve your closeness with Christ. Once you get good at that one, you have a habit helping you to do that, pick something else and work on that one next. And keep working on the next thing and the next thing and next thing. Eventually, you will come closer to Christ and you'll feel his love more in your life. And that love will come through your life. And as that love comes through your life, because you understand it and have that faith in him inside, that happiness, that joy of the gospel will come through. And your neighbors and family and friends will start to see that. And as they see that, and they see it from more and more people in your neighborhood, they will start to say, I don't know what you've got it, but I want some of it because I see the happiness in your life and I want that for my life. This is why people join the gospel. This is what helps them to make that choice. Okay, this is why we encourage people to come to church. We encourage people to do things because it helps them to feel the Spirit. But we can't help them beyond where we have been helped, where we are. We can't help them up that ladder any farther than we are. So we need to set that example to do that. So let's go through some of these. One is reading scriptures daily. If you're not reading the scriptures every day, be reading them every day. That's an easy one, build into a habit. Attend church weekly. Be a part of your organizations, a part of church, a part of that congregation is important. Give service to others regularly. If you don't give service often, look at that. How can I do this on a weekly basis? Give service to someone or an organization or a person or whatever. Pray several times a day. That's another easy one that you can easily put in place to help you feel the Spirit more. Have family home evening each week. Do the come follow me. Do it personally and or with your family. Be honest in all that you do. Be honest in all that you do. Now that one is actually a harder one to do. It sounds simple, but when you start to really practice honesty in your life, you realize that you lie to yourself a lot. And you need to stop that. You need to stop telling yourself you are inadequate. You need to stop telling yourself that you can't. Because it's not about what you can or can't do. It's about what can God do through you. Rely on him and be honest with yourself. I don't do the best. That's fine. Because I pray and ask God to help me be better. This is why we should pray over everything we do. Because if we pray over everything we do, then God can help us more. Very, very important. Pay your tithing. That's a big one. If you haven't been paying your tithing, you should. That by itself is an amazing principle. Very amazing principle. Be more forgiving of others. That's a great one. Who do you know in your life that has hurt you? Okay, forgiveness isn't about them. Forgiveness is about you. They don't even have to know you've forgiven them. Forgiveness is about you letting go and moving on and being okay and understanding better what's going, taking care of yourself. That is forgiveness. I forgive you not because you've asked for my forgiveness, but because I need to heal. If you're holding on to stuff, if you have grudges against people, if you have people that you won't talk to, you need to forgive them. These are the things that are holding you back from having the Spirit of God with you more. Forgive them. The Savior taught his apostles in the New Testament that before you give your sacrifice on the altars to God, go and ask forgiveness of your friends and neighbors. Make sure you're good with everybody. Get all those things worked out through before you give your sacrifice to God, because it will mean more if you do it that way. So be more forgiving of other people. Show more positivity, less cynicism. Be more real. Just understand we're here. That doesn't mean we have to, revel in the problems we have, but we could look on the bright side. We don't have to be, Pollyanna, optimism, amazing, too optimistic kind of thing. Have some realism to your optimism, but we can still look forward to a better day. We might not have a better day in this life, but there will always be a better day in the next life based upon how we do things in this life. You know what? And really, here's one that's a good one. Set goals and achieve them. Set goals. Put things in your life to say, this is what I want to do. I'm going to work towards having that. I'm going to work towards that goal. That will make a big difference. You'll be surprised at how much this principle of just setting a goal, having something for you to do to improve your life, will help you. Set a goal to lose weight, or exercise, or eat better, or study a topic, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is, but set goals and work towards that. That'll help you. And when you pray and ask God to help you, you'll see that happen. It'll make a big difference. Attend the temple on a regular basis, like quarterly at least would be great. Monthly or weekly is ideal. But get to the temple regularly. You'll be amazed at the amount of spiritual power you'll have in your life when you go to the temple on a very regular basis. Work to magnify your calling. Don't do the bare minimum. Don't just begrudgingly do your calling. Accept it. Get into it. Get excited about it. Add the Spirit to your work in the church and go forward. Pray about everything you do. Ask God to help you and guide you, and see the vision of what you are there to do. And He will bless you and help you, and that'll help you in what you're doing. Change your life to have the Spirit with you more. That's kind of the overall story of this whole thing. But realize, what are the movies that are holding me back? What are the books I'm reading that are keeping the Spirit away? What are the TV shows I'm watching, or what are the websites I'm going to that are detracting from the Spirit in my life? Start eliminating those. Get rid of the media that is holding the Spirit back. Put the media in that'll help the Spirit be with you more. That's a great thing to work on. Be generous with others. Exercise more faith in God. Do what the prophet actually tells us to do. That's a good one. Fast as often as best as you can. Live more truth in all of your life. Keep the word of wisdom more. That one will do wonders for you as well. Study a gospel topic in depth. Keep the commandments more. So the goal is to take this list, and this is not by far a comprehensive list, but it's a pretty good one, I think. Take this list, work on it until you can say, I'm doing everything on this list all at the same time. That is going to be amazing, because your life is going to see transformations and changes. Your life may not actually get better. You might not earn any more money. You might not have any less problems. But how you handle and take care of all those problems and challenges will get better. It will be amazing, the transformation that happens in your life. I can promise you this. Promise you this. And the beauty is the more people that do this, the more your neighbors will see it. And again, they're going to go, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to learn more about it because your life seems better than mine. That is what's going to invite people in. Now, here's the thing. If enough members of the church, in let's say a ward, for instance, if enough members of a ward were to do this, they would elevate their spirituality. There is this concept called critical mass that's in science. Critical mass says when a certain percentage of an object changes, the rest of the object naturally changes to match it. Okay, so as you get that critical mass of people that make a change, everything else changes. If you ever notice, this happens all the time. We just don't realize it. Like when a TikTok theme comes out, or an Instagram challenge comes out, or whatever, these dumb little challenges like the old, the Tide Pods challenge or other stupid stuff that they've done in the past. When enough people have shared it, it just takes off. When culture does this all the time, when a change, like, how many of you remember the time when there's a phrase in culture, and personally it drives me nuts, where somebody says, man, it's been a minute since I've done that, using the term minute to reference there's been a length of time since I've done this before. That length of time varies by how someone defines what the minute means. Could be years, could be months, could be weeks, could be hours. But they all use the same stupid term, minute, to do it. This is such a cultural thing we have today. But you know what's funny? If you went back and looked at videos and dialogue and conversations with people 3 years ago, you would find that the word minute almost does not exist. So why is everybody using it today, but they didn't use it 3 or 4 years ago? It's because enough people used it to hit that critical mass, and then once it hits critical mass, the whole society just adopts it wholeheartedly. You don't even realize you're doing it. This is what happens. So critical mass makes a big difference in our life. So, and in societies, when we get into groups, okay, if a percentage of a team decides to play a certain way, the rest of the team will naturally follow that and want to go that direction. So this is why you want to have your leaders help the team move in a good direction, because the rest of the team will follow them once you hit the critical mass point. So in a ward, if every member of a ward council and their counselors and all of their families were to strive to do this, over time, you will hit a critical mass. Now, here's the thing is, every year or so, you'll have at least a little bit of leadership change in some position somewhere in your ward. So when you are released as a leader, you're not released from doing this. We want you to continue doing it. We want you to continue on this path, because that is going to help increase that critical mass. The new people coming in, they're going to be taught to do this too. You will get to a point where enough members of the ward have been through in leadership to do this. And as they do it and keep doing it, your ward will hit a point where the spirituality will be elevated, and the rest of the ward will say, I don't know what you guys are doing, but I want to do that. I want to follow you. I want to be involved in these activities that you're doing, because something's going on in your life, and I want it too. And the rest of the ward, the active members, will start to elevate up to that point. Now, the beauty of this is, as the active members elevate up to that point, the part member families and the semi-active or less active people will start to see this shift happen. And they'll go, oh, look at what's going on in their life. Maybe I need to get back into this. Their life is great. I mean, their life doesn't appear great, but there's something about their life that is so happy that I want to fulfill that. And maybe they say, I remember what this used to feel like. I remember what that spirit was like. I want more of that. And those part member families and those less actives will start to come into that as well. And as they come into it as well, the non-members that are around you will start to say, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what's different between our lives, but your life just seems better than mine. And I want to know that difference. I want what you have. That will bring people to the gospel. This is something that is so powerful. If you look at opportunities when missionaries go into areas where there has not been the gospel taught, or there is not a really strong presence of the church in certain areas, the people are beaten down. They're oppressed, they're downtrodden, they've got troubles, they've got problems, they've got all kinds of issues going on in their life. And somebody comes in with the gospel, they go, I don't know what you've got, but you have a spirit about you that is different than everything else in this life that I've seen. What are you doing different? I want to know about this feeling that I get when I'm around you. That is the missionary work. That is really where the conversion is happening in missionary work. When missionaries bring the gospel into the home of a family and they feel that gospel, they feel that feeling from the Spirit, they want to learn more. And that continues to help them down that path until they say, yes, I want to be baptized. I believe in Christ, and I want him to help me in my life more. And then they get that better feeling of this sins being washed away and things are better. They have the baptism. They feel so good. They love it. That energy and excitement bring them into the gospel and want to help them to stay there. And then as they continue to learn, they do more, and it builds their faith more and more, and they grow. This is what it should be like. This is what will get people to come around to the gospel more, is to elevate us. And as we elevate us, we will bring everybody with us. So my challenge, if you are on a ward council or a part of a leadership position in a ward or stake or area level or whatever level it is, do this. What can you do to elevate your life towards Christ? And as you do that, you have the people around you do that. And eventually it will make a big move. Now, I understand from, let's say, a ward level, if you're a bishop and you're like, hey, I'm going to put this in practice in my own ward, and we're going to do this. It can't be compelled. That's an important point of this. Agency is an important part of the gospel. You cannot make the ward council do this. That would be inappropriate. They have to want to do it themselves. So you, as the bishop and the bishopric, you set the leader for the ward council. You set that standard. We're going to do it. I hope you will join in with us on doing this. And as they do it, it will happen. It has to be agency. It cannot be compelled. Okay? That does mean you're going to have a lot of patience, and it's going to take time for this to work its way out. Now, to get to that critical mass point and get things happening to where if you have one ward in your entire stake that is doing this, and that ward is following this, it's probably going to take 5 to 7 years before that ward stands out to a point that everybody else in the stake goes, I don't know what you guys are doing, but teach us how to do it too. It's going to take time, and that's where that patience comes in. It's not going to be a big deal, okay? It's not like happening quickly. If you look at the days of Enoch's probably the most successful person to accomplish this very thing. He was the first missionary. The prophet Enoch was really the first missionary of the gospel of repentance. That he was out there. He was commanded to teach the people of repentance, to call them to repentance, to bring them back to Christ, because we had so much rampant wickedness in those days right before the flood. It took Enoch centuries, nearly 100 some odd years, to pull the righteous out of the crowd, to separate the wheat from the tares, if you will. And they went up and built Zion, and then Zion perfected itself even more and eventually left this earth because it couldn't be held. And then the floods came and wiped everybody else out, and we started over. The thing is it took a long time for this to happen. It's not an overnight thing, but the more we keep working on it, the better. So set the example as a leader, set the example for everybody underneath you and around you to do this, and be the encouragement for them to do this. If there is only one activity, one function, one behavior, one activity, one anything that you do, it should be this. Elevate your closeness with Christ. And as you elevate yourself, everybody else will want to start to follow you in what you're doing. That is what you need to do. That's the important part. That's the whole scriptures of, once you are converted, once you know it, warn your neighbor. You have to be converted first before you can warn your neighbor. So work on yourself. Build yourself up. Do these things. These are simple things. Pick one and work on it until you got a good habit, and then pick the next one and keep working on it. This is a lifelong journey. Keep going. And the more and more people do this, the more people in the ward that do it, the more the whole ward will want to follow it. And the more this will happen. But it's going to take some time. So have patience and keep working on it. Hey, I really hope you've enjoyed this. I look forward to reading your comments on the discussion today and seeing what those are. Again, if you've liked this, please share it with other people who are in leadership or would like to learn more about leadership. That's so important that we can spread this message and word out to get more people to follow these same ideas. So thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video as we continue to teach another principle that every ward council member should know.